having a ball. Look at this.
The EV Cafe Village represents the end-to-end ecosystem, everything that you could need to know to decarbonise your fleet.
And the EV Village is doing exactly what it always does, collaboration and communication across the industry.
So the EV Cafe Village has been the home to the Decarbonisation Theatre, where we have been getting insights from industry leaders.
It's great to be at the heart of one of the biggest commercial vehicle shows here in the UK, where you have companies like Verizon, Renault Group, and even Flexis launch.
So, yeah, amazing.
It's been really incredible. I love doing the CV show. It's one of the shows that I always put forward every year. But I also put forward of why we always go with the EV Cafe. It's so good because there's parts of everything for the whole ecosystem. If I don't do it, I know somebody who does do it, and I can absolutely bring you there and introduce you. I love the commodity that we all have. We all love integrating with each other, and I love seeing everybody as well. Like, this is the show to be at, but this is also the stand to be at.
We were here at the event last year as part of the EV Cafe Village, and it's grown exponentially, which is fantastic. But this area has kind of become a bit of a hub, actually. The networking from delegates and amongst ourselves has been fantastic too.
So the lights are out on the Iveco E-Daily, and the show is coming to an end as the music kicks in as the social networking has begun. Time for a beer, a bit of a chat, and then head off for some well-earned rest after 3 brilliant days at the CV show.
Oh, you lovely lot. Isn't that fab? The CV show. Why did we show you that? Well, I'll tell you why. Because it matters. 20,000 people, 3 days, all of us. And we discovered some incredible vehicles, some fabulous technology, but most importantly, some wonderful people. So welcome, wonderful people, to Trucks, Vans and Plans. This is our little get together where we have no guests. We are the guests. So let me introduce them to you. In the same bedroom as me is little Paul. There's a story there, but I'm not going there. How are you, mate?
I am very well. Slightly scared after that introduction, but no, I'm going to be okay. I'm very excited for today. I'm always a little bit overexcited when it comes to talking about commercial vehicles, but on the back of that video as well, just so brilliant to see all of the people coming together, The feedback has been brilliant. We've been getting so much positive feedback after the show as well. So, it doesn't capture that. But who would argue with Pam Hanlon if she was going to take you over and see them? I can absolutely take you to them. Yeah, okay, I'm going. Yeah, it's very. So I'm all good. Thank you, John.
Good. So you're our van man for today and bringing that expertise. Next up is Sam. And Sam, I know 3 Guinness World Records. We know. However,
Yeah.
you're the truck man today, and you're going to be bringing some of your truck wisdom, what's going on with Z-HID and EHGVs and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm the original van man, but we'll let Paul have it for today. Yeah, so trucks, yeah, it's all happening, isn't it? It's been an absolute whirlwind of marketing in the last this year, really, in the truck world, and there are so many different parts of the haulage industries that are electrifying now. So it's pretty exciting stuff, and Z-HID is a really, really contributive element of that, and I'm very proud to be at the absolute thick of it, to be honest, because I'm not a trucker, don't know much about trucks, don't profess to do. But I
you are
understand
thick.
well, there is that. But I very much love the fact that it's another genre of EV related activity that is starting to grip and starting to manifest itself into real world operations, which is pretty exciting stuff.
And then, of course, we've got the wonderful Sarah Sloman, who you're going to be championing the driver and the user experience today, Sarah, because people are the secret, aren't they?
They are. I'm really happy to tie together that sort of elusive commerciality aspect of having a better strategy when it comes to looking after the driver and putting the driver first. So that's going to be my little slot later. But we are missing Johnny Berry. He has been called away, which is very sad because he is the one who was going to pull this all together for us. So wherever you are, Johnny, please hope you're okay. Watch this back later and we'll make sure we pass on any questions to you. But the CV show for me was all about the people. We had 60 seats. That wasn't enough. Standing room only most of the time. And people weren't chatting when the stage was on, meaning they were really listening to what the panelists had to say. Full credit to the behind the scenes EV Cafe team that pulled all of that together for us to deliver what was a really varied and impactful presentation slot for 3 full days. Don't know about you lot, but I had a real calm down after the show, real sort of shadow of what was. So yeah, looking forward to the next year already.
Now then, we've got 45 or so people with us in this webinar. It will grow, but I'm interested mostly in your questions. So today, have a think. What is it you'd like to ask the van expert, the truck expert, and the driver experience expert? I'm just an idiot who'll try and pull this thing together. And I'll ask some questions. Indeed, I'm down at your level, mate.
I owed you one, I had to say.
Idiot. Yeah, fair play. But Paul, I know that you have a very special thing that you want to talk about with mental health awareness.
Absolutely. And for those of you that don't know, it is Mental Health Awareness Week from the 12th to the 18th of this month, of course, May. And this month, the focus is on community. And community is something that we have always stood for from the early days when we kicked off the EV Cafe, and it was all about the community in COVID, right? So we wanted to keep the conversation going. We quickly found out within that community at that time, and maybe some of you remember back to those days, that mental health was a really important thing. Now, I'm a mental health trained first aider, as is John, and I think Saz as well, maybe. I'm not sure. Anyway, we've always been very focused on this thing. So I wanted to just kind of share with us the sort of why is community important for our mental health and well-being. I'm not going to go into the detail of it, but you can see all of the detail at mentalhealth.org.uk, and you can see all of the details. But social connections can reduce isolation, and we know that. We knew that through COVID, but we know that still today, where mental health can be a challenge if we feel isolated. Community builds a strong sense of belonging, and we know that actually working together to push things forward within the EV industry, the sense of community and that sense of belonging is really helpful. The sense of purpose through community involvement, and that doesn't have to be just electric vehicles. It could be your local community centre. It could be a local project that you're involved in, a national project. Anything that builds community is really supportive, and community can reduce symptoms of mental health issues. I always feel better when I'm with people. Actually, when I'm alone at home and banging away on the computer or whatever, you just can't, sometimes you don't feel quite yourself. But getting in with a community of people is brilliant. And life feels more satisfying when you're part of a community, you're helping other people, and community can ease psychological distress. And there are some tips that they give. Make it fun, have some fun together, which is why the EV cafes always work so well. Get outdoors. Well, we did eventually find like-minded people, and we're a group of like-minded people. Show kindness to others. That should never be underestimated. Show your appreciation. Be thankful. Be grateful. Become part of an online community, everybody. The EV Cafe, that's it. And volunteer or give to charity. Care for your local community. Welcome new members to your community, and you are a welcoming bunch. And find peer support groups if you're struggling. That's the key. If you're struggling, speak up. We want to know. We want to hear. I know John and I and all of us have spoken to maybe some of you or peers that have been struggling at different times and reached out and supported. So I know that you do that for one another. We're a community, it's a community, and being in a community supports your mental health. So do not be afraid to reach out. And, I'm going to leave those thoughts with you and hand you back to John.
Cheers, buddy. Worth picking up Stuart Humphrey. He's an advocate for the neurodiverse. Put my hand up. Me too. And if you need any support, Stuart's an amazing human being. We all care. And I think that's the bottom line. We care, show each other respect, and allow each other to be the best us we can be. Thank you, Paul, for that.
John, I
wanna
think
just
I was just about to
Go
say, I
on.
think the CV show is a physical manifestation of what Paul just said, right? And it truly was a place where everyone collaborated, and that's good in business, and that's why we do it. It's networking, and it's to help promote everybody's brands. But similarly, there was a mental aspect to that. There was just bloody good fun, and there were a lot of people in the same place, all enjoying each other's company, both during the event and after. So long may that continue, because if nothing, forget the business side of it for a second, it was just nice to have everyone in the same place, wasn't it? And it was a joy really to be able to do that with a lot of like-minded people, including likes of Stuart and many others that have come and visited us countless times. It's just great to be able to provide that stage for everybody else to do that.
Well said. Here, here, and thank you, Sam. If you've got questions around vans, trucks, driver experience, do throw them into the Q&A box at the bottom of this screen, or on LinkedIn or on YouTube, wherever you happen to be consuming Paul and Sam and Sarah. And we will do our best to answer your questions as we go through. And if we can't, we'll know somebody who can. Right. I think it's wise to start with the big boys at the top. So, trucks. During COVID, I discovered that I didn't just love cars. I actually came to really value the commercial vehicle, the trucks that deliver stuff to distribution centres, the vans that then pick that stuff up and bring it to your door. And without the lifeblood of society, those trucks and vans, you don't get anything. It's really key to the success of our country and our societies. Sam, tell us what's going on with electric trucks.
Well, I think first and foremost, John, I wouldn't start with trucks. I'd start with commercial vehicles, because I think I've been banging on about this internally and externally for some time, that it's not just about the trucks. That's just the flavor of the month, and it's a good flavor. There are obviously buses that have been electrified for some time now. To a certain extent, it's easier because when the technology is there and you've got metronomic routes, it's a bit easier to manage how that's undertaken. But anything from a long wheelbase, medium wheelbase, even van, all the way up to a big 42-ton truck, doesn't have anything or anywhere to charge right now with the greatest of ease. And so I think one of the reasons why I threw my heart and soul into the EHGV ZHID project was around the concept of trying to help materially put commercial charging more on the map, which just happened to be through the medium of EHGV through ZHID. But for me, it's everything that's big that doesn't physically fit in a current bay. Yeah, a bit like you when you sit anywhere. But EHGV is obviously a really good springboard, and I know Paul, no doubt, will rightly so wax lyrical about the fact, don't forget the little guy in the middle, right? The van, that's also very important. But sometimes, if we can tackle the big things, then hopefully, as a sort of almost in the wake and the back of that, we'll be able to provide more infrastructure for the commercial world more generally. Because I don't think, unfortunately, as much as he'd love it, it would start with the van and up. I don't think that's just not going to happen. We've seen that's not going to happen. It's going to have to come from the top down, physically speaking, from the vehicles in order to do that. But it is there, it's working. My project alone has got 12 depots in build as we speak. We should have 7 public sites built by the end of this year, or the very beginning of next. We've ordered 160 trucks, which is 20 more than we set out 2 years ago, and it equates for more than now 20% of all EHGVs in the UK. So that's material difference, and I'm incredibly proud of everybody that's been involved in that journey to get those vehicles on the road and using them on a daily basis. We're nudging up to millions of miles now already being done through these projects, and if that isn't a catalyst for change, I don't know what is. So hopefully it continues to grow as we hope it all does.
Sam, we often are guilty of looking at things through rose-tinted spectacles, some might say, and that we always promote the positive, the good. What are the challenges that you're facing in delivering that project?
God, yeah, and that's the end of the webinar by the time I finish answering that
Yeah,
question.
look at that.
Yeah, everything, John. I'll try and be succinct, but it's everything. The vehicle ordering is difficult. The lead time for the vehicles is challenging, as truck manufacturers perhaps can't. Not all of them can produce the vehicles quite as early or as quickly as they'd hoped. Some, on the other hand, are doing the inverse and are putting things on the road pretty quick. So that's good. But so vehicle procurement is a challenge. The power, the planning, the architectural design of the sites, the bay monitoring, the reservation, the right haulage and the right depot at the right time. The public access has been incredibly difficult. I think one of the hardest things is these are, as I keep saying, they're big vehicles, and a lot of there's already a very massive big shortage of truck parking availability as it stands. And the most practical way to do large scale EHTV infrastructure is a drive-through methodology. It's the safest. It means that less things are likely to get smashed to pieces. The downside to that is you need about 1.5 bays in order to facilitate that sort of solution. And if you're already in a effectively in the motorway service areas in particular, is a legacy-driven layout, it's very difficult. So I think there are physical constraints. I'm less concerned about the technical ones, really, because in many ways, trucks are just big cars, right? The chargers are just slightly bigger and actually, in many cases, produce the same amount of energy or power, I should say, as the car chargers do. So it's not the technological aspects, I think, are the greatest difficulty. It's getting the power to the right place at the right time. Not we sorted the charger, and then the physical constraints of the bays themselves and how best to put them into the wild. Off the top of my head.
Question from me: which applications help the audience understand this? Which applications for trucks are being the most commonly used? Is it the tractor unit? Is it what we call an 18 or 26 ton rigid? In other words, more local delivery. So for context, everybody, the tractor units will go up and down the motorways carrying big containers oftentimes, or that type of thing, whereas the sort of rigids, we would call them the 18 to 26 ton stuff, will do the more local domestic in and out of cities, that type of thing. Where do you see the biggest take up?
I think, Paul, although I said flippantly at the beginning, I'm the original van man, when I did have 120 of them in central London, it was because central London was the best place to try and use vans, which only did about 20-mile range a day, max. So the lowest hanging fruit for me was to put depots in the lowest local locations and try and do the lowest hanging fruit first. And I think probably in the truck world, it stands to reason the same thing will happen. So I would imagine that the sort of rigid trucks, the slightly smaller ones, are more likely to be more prevalent doing local routes to begin with, back to base as often as possible. All that mentality or methodology that I applied to my last mile logistics 15 years ago, I think applies still today because it's still logistics and the principles are still the same in terms of electrifying the fleet. But hopefully with things like ZHID, the catalyst for a higher level of change with the really big trucks, hopefully will start to also manifest itself. Maybe still doing reasonably local routes to begin with. But we've got a couple of hauliers already that have had vehicles on the road now for 6 to 9 months going, right, now that we know what we can do on the local level, come on, guys, build these public sites and then we can push these things further. We can go up and down the country and back again, So I think inevitably, and I wrote a customer acquisition strategy document for one of the motorway service areas a few months ago that stipulated that if you want traffic at your motorway service areas, guys, the reality is depots is where it needs to be first, because that's where it will start and then it will grow into those areas thereafter as people go for the lowest hanging fruit, lowest risk operations to start with, and then start to push the boundaries thereafter. So I think that's probably how it'll go.
Good answer. Thank you.
I want to come in here. Ben McDonald has asked a really interesting question in the Q&A section, and I think it's worth taking early because he may have to dash off, but what the opportunity he's got is huge. What would you like me to say to any MPs as part of the EVA England MP drop-in this afternoon? I'm guessing how we can charge vans cheaply and easily would be the best shout. And he's cited Paul, and I guess this is a question as much for our audience as anything. You're all very informed practitioners and advocates. What things need to be said to MPs to promote the acceleration and transition to electric vehicles? Sam, you got any thoughts in terms of EHGV, or are we pretty well served from a political perspective?
We're pretty well served in the short term because we've got the likes of ZHID, but after that, we've only got the plug-in truck grant, the 25 grand, which barely scratches the surface on the unit cost of a vehicle as it stands. So I think there definitely would be use for just highlighting that we still need that support in a very nascent market. And a plug-in truck grant is great, but perhaps isn't quite enough to tempt people away from their diesel equivalents. So I think fiscal incentives are always great. I'm always an advocate of them, providing that we taper them out in a fair and in a good way. The fiscal incentives, ZHID aside, probably are a little bit light touch at the moment, and probably could do with a little bit more help. Notwithstanding, they also need to tailor off so there isn't some big scary thing at the end. So I guess that's the first thing that would spring to mind for me.
Now, I may have mentioned that Paul and I are sharing a bedroom, and it reminds me of Eric Morecambe and Ernie Wise. He raised a finger, and I'm slightly concerned. Paul.
Well, I don't know what the scene in which, although I was a great fan of Morecambe and Wise, they were brilliant, but I can't remember the scene in particular. I was thinking, Ben, what could you say? Well, the zero emission van plan is something that has been put forward to MPs and is quite a clear plan that you can go forward. It's been put forward by the BVRLA, Logistics UK, REA, the AFP, and of course the EV Café. So we have supported all that. That's been going on for about 12 months. I think the ability to charge vans at home, Ben, absolutely, I know it's something close to your heart with the kind of tech that you've created in order to be able to get across pavements and be able to charge vehicles. I think that is definitely something that we do need to kind of find a way to solve. Getting when the vans go home, big proportions of the larger fleets go home. And that is difficult to solve. So we need to find a way that is fair and equitable, because the those vans that are going on the road are having to use very expensive public charging, and it doesn't really balance out in the long run. So we do need to think that through. So that would be, yes, you're right, cost-effective charging, but also solutions that sorry, also focus on things that are already in play, like the zero emission van plan.
Robin Hughes, lovely to see you here, and stay safe with the monsoon rains out in Hong Kong. Sarah, your thoughts on what to say to MPs that would help the transition?
Oh, Sarah Wixie got it on the nail on the head there for me. Last week, Su Chung hosted the Transport and Energy Editorial Board at the SMMT HQ London, and Suki said something really interesting that really struck a chord with me. It's just decarbonisation and air quality is not yet an equitable transition. So anything that we can do to level that playing field and stop it being a sort of elite hobby, which we are seeing, my neighbour is a Sky employee and he's been asked to change his van for an electric van, of which he's really anxious and nervous about. So, it has stopped it from being a company car scenario. And Suki and I did sort of agree that the cars still need a lot of work. There are still hundreds of thousands of passenger vehicles yet to be done. And also I'm very frustrated by the way in which data is presented. We should all have the same responsibilities as the financial services sector, which is to speak in plain English at all times. And yet trying to read some of these documents can be vastly misleading. If you look up how many EHGVs there are, for a start, Google changed it to how many eggs there are, which is very funny. But then when you finally get the right answer, it says something about having increased by 400 and something percent. And you think, wow, that's amazing. But of course, we know this is really early doors. It's about 100 and no, I think it's about 300 EHGVs in total versus 600,000 normal HGVs. So again, please don't use stupid, misleading data to show something really positive that can be accidentally spun or turned into a negative. So plain English in parliamentary reports, please.
It's a really great point, Sarah. The other thing that I would say that I wanted to kind of give Ben is now left my brain, and I can't think what
Was
on
it at
earth
home
it was.
charging or something? Was it take home
No,
charging, something like that? No.
gosh, I've forgotten that. I'm getting old, everybody. I'm really sorry.
Oh.
There we go. I've completely forgotten.
No.
We'll come back to you shortly, my dear boy,
Yeah.
if you remember. Now then, whilst he's collecting himself, some brilliant questions in the Q&A section already. If you've got questions that you want to ask us, by all means do. Thank you ever so much for being here. I know Wednesdays, 12 o'clock, it's a tough gig. You've had to cancel loads of meetings to be here, and quite rightly so. But thank you, because it is appreciated. Right, Pablo, talk to us about vans. What's going on in the van world that is not the usual run-of-the-mill stuff? Oh dear, we're not selling many, moan, moan, moan. What is happening that is positive that we can jump on and learn from?
I've remembered. It was the price of vans are coming down and are much more, and we'll come on to that in a second. But I wanted to just try and paint a picture for us because the market, the total market, the addressable market is 4.8 million vans. There's typically around, maybe 20% of them, sorry, about, yeah, 20% of them off the road at any given time. So there's probably 4 million vans running around the world at the moment, or in the UK. And every year, 330 to 350,000 new ones hit the road, and obviously they drop off the back end. At the moment, we are at around about 6,500 vans year to date have been sold. And that's a 31% increase on last year. So that's a good number to focus on because the market share number, 7.6%, which is good, it's an improvement, but it's not anywhere near what they are asking for in the ZEV mandate. But there's a lot of adjustments and things that are happening in the background that are allowing manufacturers to trade reductions in CO2 and all that kind of stuff. So the actual market is going in the right direction in terms of the overall CO2. We're reducing CO2 even from some of the vehicles that are out there. HVO is kicking in and other bits and pieces, but the electric vehicle market is growing and we're beginning to see a decent amount of increase. So that's the market. The opportunity for you as a buyer is now growing exponentially. We've got small vans, we've got medium vans, we've got large vans, we've got chassis cabs, we've got all kinds of things to meet every need across the landscape at the moment. Now, we might not have the absolute diversity of the diesel world, but we have all the major boxes ticked. So you've got small vans like the Kangoo and the Townstar, and we've also got the Combo and the rest of the Stellantis products like the Toyota Pro-Ace City and so on. We've also got the ID Buzz, and we've got the launch of the Kia EV Niro. So coming back to price, the price of the Kia EV Niro is cheaper than, say, the Stellantis diesel product. So we've already got product that is generally considered entry level price wise is now being bettered by electric vehicles. So the opportunity is increasing in the small van sector. In the medium van sector, we're seeing similar action happening. We've got a plethora of vehicles from the Transit Custom, the most sold vehicle bar none for 2 or 3 years over the last 4 or 5 years. So we're seeing like ultra volume vehicles being converted. But we've also got the Stellantis product, which does very well, and we've got the Maxus products, and we've also got a new entrant in Verizon that has come on with a very interesting product and at a reasonable price as well. So we're seeing good stuff there. Then, oh, hang on, I've got a hand waving.
Yeah, you've mentioned Verizon, and I just wanted to just pick up Ian Thompson's question because he says, "Tell us about Verizon again and how oddball the Kia P5 payload are." They demoed it with empty pallets in place that could never be put down if stacked. Go for it, Paul.
Oh, see, I mean, so I would refer people to both my videos. So there's a video on the Kia PV5 and a video on the Verizon van. So the Verizon van, let's deal with that one first. It's come with a really solid proposition, all at 3.5 ton, which is really important. So up to 1,350 kilos, payload up to 7 meters. It starts at 7 cubic meters in terms of load space, which is more than the other vans in its space, but only has the same footprint. So what they're doing is making better use of space because it's a ground up electric vehicle. And in that size of vehicle, that makes a real difference, and you're getting extra space for your money. You've got great range on that vehicle. So there's a 65-ish kilowatt hour battery, an 83 kilowatt hour battery, and a 106 kilowatt hour battery. So 3 battery versions to choose from to make the right configuration for you. You've got range of up to 245 miles, and we haven't really put that to the test yet, but we're quite optimistic that it will do pretty well. It's got weight monitor. It's got loads of good stuff. It's worth looking at. The Kia PV5. It's cheap. It's come out at a really good price, £22,500 after the first grant. I have to be honest and say that I was a little disappointed in that it didn't come with 800-volt charging, and what that means is it would charge you from say 10 to 80% in under 20 minutes if it did. But it didn't. It came with 150 kilowatt charging. That's okay. Payload wise, when they said 790 kilos, given that it goes up to 5.2 cubic meters in terms of space, was just not enough in my book for the mass market. Well, I had this conversation with Sam, and we it could be okay for small parcel companies like his was in the day, where you could just load a few parcels in the back and reach from the back. I'm with you on the whole pallet thing. Wasn't quite right. So, I'm with you. It's got some challenges, but it's a funky van, good spec, brilliant price. It'll do well. 7-year warranty, everybody. Hallelujah. That is good news. So they've come with a real element of positivity. So I think it's fair to say that across the piece now, we've got small, medium, and large vans, and large vans are coming with massive range. 285 claimed from Renault, 271 claimed from the Sprinter, 261 claimed from the Movano. And because they're limited on speed, you can't be that hooligan that charges down the motorway at 80 miles an hour. So you're not going to be able to do that. But there is some limitations around the 4.25 ton stuff, and that needs to be thought through. It's in consultation at the moment. So that's one of the challenges, really, that the 4.25 ton home charging, as we've already touched on, is a challenge as well, and power is a challenge. Total cost of ownership has been a challenge because it isn't always straightforward. It's more expensive to run these vehicles in some cases, but that is improving. And as I said about the small van in the Kia PV5, but also the Renault Master, £37,500 for a big van, only £3 more than the diesel. And if you go on their contract hire, actually cheaper. So am I sponsored by Renault? No, of course not. What I am doing is saying, look, here is the opportunity. It's really good. The solutions are coming to market. There's lots of consultations happening. We're seeing reducing in prices. We're seeing faster charging coming to market. Flexis are talking about 240 kilowatt charging, 800 volt, of course. Yes, they're going to be the first to come with that product. Sadly, we've got to wait till next year, which is a bit of a shame. But to Sam's point, we will begin to see dedicated commercial vehicle charging and see that market, the whole commercial vehicle market, have its own space now. And there are companies like Leap that are focusing very much on the van world of charging. We're seeing sort of hubs that are coming to, like the AW Energy hub is perfectly suitable for most vans because there's a lot of space. And you can get even the big vans in with only a small overhang, but they've got the power there as well, which is great to see. So, there is a lot of real positivity. Payload, people are worried about payload. Payload is there now. The Verizon that I talked about at 3.5 ton, 1,350 kilos. The Renault Master, over 1,000 kilos at 3.5 ton, up to 1,500 kilos if you go to their 4-ton version, and similarly with other products in the marketplace. So there is lots of opportunity. There are a few challenges. They are coming to meet the solutions that are being put out in the marketplace, and it is a positive space. And I'm going to leave it there.
Paul Kirby, paid by the word.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
I
big check.
enjoyed that. I thought that was amazing.
Wow.
That's what to say.
Yeah.
Wow. Seriously, I mean, he's got no notes. He's just sitting there chatting away. He's got all this in his
Amazing.
noggin. He is like 5'0" of genius.
John, just a couple of
Lovely.
points on one point on what Paul said, and then a question to Paul. The first point is that just to sort of echo as well what the question originally was around the pallet application within the the Kia van. I've got his
EV5.
name.
Yeah.
EV5. You called it a
EV5.
Nero earlier. It completely threw me. I was like, it's not, is it? It's not a Nero.
It's not Nero.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, that's not the be all and end all, right? Yes, for many applications, getting the pallets in is great. For many applications, payload's important, but there are hundreds of thousands of vans out there that don't need either, right? So therefore, the application can be applied. I mean, there are hundreds and thousands of last mile logistics companies that don't require pallets and don't require payload. So there's plenty of applications for different types of vehicles. It's not just one size fits all. But my question to you, Paul, was around the our friends at Europcar. So you talked about the commerciality and the parity that we're starting to see, or near parity with most vehicle types. I'm guessing that's direct correlations to why they're able to start to offer vehicles now, the EV ones, costing the same as the petrol or diesel counterparts.
I think there is a move afoot. So the manufacturers have pushed rental companies in particular to take those vehicles, and I think that there is then a returning price conversation to say, well, look, make it palatable, make everything a bit more level in terms of the end result, and we'll be able to do it. So I think Europcar have obviously taken the bull by the horns and really kind of pushed that. And to get absolute price parity. And you're absolutely right, Sam. We are seeing price parity and price advantage in many cases, even on the rental of the vehicle. I mean, I do a little bit of stuff with leasing.com from time to time, and they are showing vans on their platform at 100, £120 a month, easily in parity with their diesel counterparts. So there is a lot of good stuff around the price going. I stand by my point that there is a small market, I think, for small vans with low payload. I'm concerned that they have. It's only 11% of the total market, the whole last mile logistics sector. So I worry that their focus on that sector will not give it for them. I think there will be people like tradesmen, plumbers, builders, butchers, candlestick makers that will adopt that vehicle, but I'm not certain that it's the last mile logistics sector. There we go.
Got a fabulous point from Sarah Wixie. A point about EV logistics charging hubs. These need to be open and accessible to SMEs, not just larger businesses on a membership-based model. Kind of brings us, Sarah, nicely to your area of expertise, the driver experience and where you can get charging and how easy it is. Talk to us. Oh, fontable knowledge.
Okay. Well, it's becoming a bit of a specialist subject area of mine, not least for celebrating 3 years at Paythrough last week, which is lovely, because putting the end user, the driver in our instance, at the heart of everything you do, be that your business model or your return on investment plan, is really quite profitable. So you've got that element of it, which I'll come on to. But going back to Sarah Wixie's point, this came up. We had an amazing panel. I was delighted to be a host of this panel at the CV show. So we had Sarah Gray from Dawson Group, Elaine Pringle from Scottish Water, Lorna McAteer, of course, from National Grid, and Naomi Nye from Drax. Cool. And the idea of peer sharing did come up later as well on the local authority panel session, because you've already got the right kit in the right place, but it's just not accessible to everybody. But there are complications around, the new regulations. Does that then mean that site holder is technically a public charging facility and therefore will have to comply with the public charging regulations if they've got chargers above 8 kilowatt? Well, no, not really. Not if they're privately located with private people using them. So pre-arranged allowed visitors. It's a very sort of narrow niche, but it can be done and it should be done. I was delighted to hear some of the local authorities giving that a go, because they're a very safe place to try.
Is it just me, or is Sarah gone?
Oh no, she's back.
Oh, really? Oh, that's so sad.
You're
My
back.
connection is unstable.
I'm unstable.
So did you hear me thank Sarah Wixie for that, and to say that the local authorities were giving this a go or not?
Yeah.
You did? Okay, great. Well, there you go. And then I went on to say that some of these optimizing the EV experience can be designed in from the outset. And that sounds so obvious, but even Paul touched on it then with the Kia van being, you know, I love the low step through at the back. I thought that was great, but it doesn't suit everybody. You do still need those specialist vehicles, but even just really simple things like ergonomic seating, climate controlled cabins, everything sort of centered much more around the driver's needs, right through to things like giving a better turning circle for those super narrow streets in urban environments. That all just reduces the stress on the driver, and a reduced stress on the driver means much less downtime, higher turnaround, more efficient delivery of the day. I really find it incredible that we still see wonderful electric vehicles with quite rubbish infotainment systems. I mean, that for me, particularly on the Welsh Rally, I was given a gorgeous BYD. It was the Seal. And I just used Apple Play, because even though they spent probably millions on making it perfect, it still wasn't. I still couldn't navigate how I wanted to. It was very distracting for me. So I just stuck with what I knew. So keeping it really simple for the drivers. Then I wanted to talk a little bit about fleet telematics. Of course, we are blessed with the wonderful team at Webfleet, who'll be doing 2 special webinars coming up soon. And also they've been on a couple of our podcasts too. So this whole driver insights piece, really involving the driver into how they are performing in their vehicle. What is the optimal speed? Looking at their braking habits, or sometimes even running. I know, Sam, you did this. I certainly did too. Allowing drivers to see where they rank on a profile of being an efficient driver or not can really sort of gamify that opportunity to be a better, more efficient driver. Just such a simple measure. And I remember DHL, Paul, you remember this too, were telling us about when they did their EV rollout, they had this driver champion program where the more experienced drivers were sort of trained to mentor and buddy up with peers who were also being selected to transition to electric. And I just thought that was a really simplistic way of getting bums on seats, but also making sure that those bums are comfy. So back to the CV show, I do remember having a very meaningful conversation with Leo Pickford. Lots of people know him. I know Neil Durno and Leo are good friends. He works for Transition Wise, and we were talking about how businesses are starting to use external consultancies to sort of take things a little bit further, thinking about, yes, the transition strategy, but interweaving that with the business strategy. And I think driver welfare is going to be really important for that. You know, we don't want people who have really long logistics delivery days having to be off with stress, or to have difficulties physically as a result of the vehicles that were chosen during procurement. It just sounds so obvious, but driver retention directly impacts operational efficiency, and having a comfortable, well-selected vehicle is perfect way to go with that. I'm surprised there isn't a sort of almost a selector tool out there, an independent selector tool as to what exactly you feel your fleet drivers will need from their vehicles. And then all I would say, John, if there is time, is just about my favorite subject ever: smooth payment experience. So basic, so easy, so simple, and yet so incredibly complex. We know that if you can pay fast and track that payment effectively, then that massively reduces downtime out on the road, but also back at the office. Thousands are spent every week reconciling payments. I'm really looking very deeply into missed payments, lost payments, fraudulent payments at the moment. And these things are on the rise as we move into mass adoption. So simplistic methodology has to be replaced with something a little more secure, a little more complex, a little more protective, not only of the merchant, the CPO selling the energy, but the people using it, the users, the drivers, and then in the middle, the people paying for it, which is quite often a business. So it's really, really super complex, but there's so many ways to simplify that by learning from other industries, you know, centralized billing, detailed reports, automatic reimbursement for any held, you know, pre-authorization. These things all just reduce that driver stress and improve the experience in the vehicle. So I just really wanted to kind of make that point that getting systems, software, telematics, the vehicle itself, that's all part of it. But turning that into a really commercially viable argument as to why you would select that technology over another technology is the sort of grey area that I'm hoping we can advance and talk together and fill in.
Indeed, Sarah, you touched on a really, really key point which Stuart Humphreys raised in the Q&A tab. Can we talk about the benefit of centralised bill back for companies so that commercial vehicle drivers don't have to be out of pocket for charging their company vehicle? Can you explain that just a little more?
Yeah, I think we've seen some amazing systems out there. Obviously we heard from Pam and Laura at Power, they do a really good system. Also, we've had All Star and others. Essentially, this is where you can tap and go, right? You get given a card as part of your employment for that vehicle, and then every bit of energy you use is billed back to your company. That's pretty seamless, really, except of course, that's going to be a monthly rolling bill. It's good for the merchant, it's good for the charge point operator because it's very likely that they'll be able to get that money back. The grey area that often gets reported in the press is the self-employed commercial vehicle driver, because we know that their salaries are low, their daily take home is low, and that some of the charge point operators who are not taking but reserving, that's what the pre-authorization is, it's not a debit, it is a reserve. And anything up to £75 historically, but more about £40. If you do 2 of those in a day, which isn't out of the question if you're going to do a couple of 20-minute top-up charges in your vehicle, that money's held for sometimes days, if not weeks, and that's not compliant, but it is happening, which means that driver can't access that money if there's somebody who lives in that kind of grey area. And there's 7 million people who are reported to be self-employed, and we think those people are in fact a lot of like commercial vehicle drivers or self-employed drivers. So it's going to be a bit of a tough one for them who are relying on pre-authorization. So we're trying to find a way to make a sort of RFID style system that performs more securely like an open loop credit card system. So yeah, that's why I'm so grey. But it is good fun and we will get there. And it's just a really exciting time. We've never seen anything like this before and there's a long way to go.
Yeah, John, we've done a solution at GridServe for that Sarah was just talking about in the more controllable area of what we can do within one business. We're at Gatwick Airport, where we've got an electric forecourt, where Addison Lee are now regular users, and we have a fleet agreement with them. The trouble is, they're all self-employed drivers. So the solution we've now come up with is that they log in through the GridServe app, but we recognise their email addresses on a database, and therefore they get their preferential rates as part of the Addison Lee fleet. They get transacted immediately. The pre-auth is low. Typically, they spend up to it anyway, and therefore there's no lag of money being held for too long, and they get their payments out the door straight away, so they're not frightened with a big bill at the end of it. So that's one way of trying to mitigate it, but it's a localized solution, whereas what Sarah's trying to solve, I think, is a far broader national challenge across multiple CPOs, as opposed to what we've done on a localized way, but it does work.
And thinking about it as a consumer perk, really. So if it's bizarre to me, you have to have a completely separate card for your EV charging. And you obviously don't. You can use any type of credit card on a tap and go system. But we're not at a stage of having automatic receipts unless you go through the manual process of looking back over it. Oh, I love that, having a little code conversation. Look at that. Paul and John are having a secret chat. Oh, yeah, we were just saying, but it's a multi-trillion-pound industry that we need to get right. And at the moment, as I say, with current technology, we need to do more for the end consumer and for the businesses trying to make profitable return. It's good stuff.
Paul was just asking me to turn the bed down. Don't know why.
Getting ready for the end.
Essentially, we've got 12 minutes. 10 questions. Let's give the Q&A box a go. And I'm going to start with a cheeky chappie called Ian Smith. We can assist in charging the big trucks and EV vans, which require 1 megawatt charging with a portable service. Now, 2 points. 1, portable megawatt charging. Fantastic. As far as I know, that's right up there with technology. The other thing is I discovered yesterday water-cooled cables and charging ports for over 2-3 megawatts. Sam, I wasn't aware of this. Are all megawatt chargers in need of water cooling?
Most of our high-powered DC chargers are indeed liquid cooled, John, already, for the 350, 360 kilowatt chargers out there. So that already exists. Megawatt charging, it's needed, it's coming, it's great, it's exciting. None of the vehicles can take it yet, but we need this technology to keep coming forward because it is going to be required. It's all a timing thing, isn't it? I mean, Paul made the point earlier about it would have nice to have seen the 800-volt platform on the Kia van that would have afforded higher powered charging, therefore charging faster. Reality is, it's also a cheap vehicle. If you can't have both, right? So you put that in, all of a sudden it's 5 or 6 grand higher in the retail price, most likely. So there is going to be an element of the more technology put in, the more expensive it is. So there's definitely an approach here where megawatt is definitely coming. It's the timing that I'm not sure about just now, because I don't think it's not a need immediately, but it's going to be a need in the next 6 or 9 months. And if I keep talking, it's really going to wind Paul up because he's not going to get a word in edgeways. So let's move on to the next question,
But
John.
I think the important point is that it should. I mean, Sam, trucks, as you'll probably be beginning to be aware, have absolute plethora of options, right? So that you can build a truck to do so many different things. It's the same. There are thousands of options that are feasible. To come to market with no option, to go to, and it is thousands, Sam, just so you know, there's
No, we
thousands of
couldn't hear you,
Capcos.
Paul. You pixelated.
And oh, okay, fine. The fact to come to not have that option of 800-volt or megawatt charging or whatever it is, have no option to do it, because some fleets rate the value of being able to charge quickly far higher than the cost that would be to choose that. So they would pay 2, 3, 4,000 pounds to have that option because they get it back in the first 9 months in time alone if they were limited to public charging all of the time. And I have that on good authority directly from the horse's mouth of a fleet. They would happily pay lots more money to get that time back.
I think you're
Really
right.
important.
I think you're right. Although the economics probably is much further forward than the consumer. I would imagine it's the investment that is required for the Kias of this world to build this infrastructure into that model of vehicle in the first place. So it might be that there's tens of millions of pounds worth of engineering additionality that might need to go into a vehicle in order to develop that, because it is a completely different piece of electrical engineering, and therefore there's inherently going to be a higher cost to do it. And they probably just think to get to market in the fastest possible time at the lowest possible price, this is the level of technology we're going to pitch at.
They've already got the technology. They've got it into
Not in a van.
yeah, but it's battery management system. It's wires and cables. It's not much more than that.
It's a lot more complicated than you think. Trust me. You can't just lift it and chuck it in the back of a van. It's a bit more complicated than that.
Well, let's see. Let's find out. Anyway, John, back to you.
You're on mute,
He's
John.
on mute.
You're doing so well, guys, before that.
Hello, darlings. Right. Do you think that we can do more to promote the business case benefits for drivers? Driving EV isn't just cheaper pence per kilometre, it's massively more pleasant than a noisy, rattly diesel commercial vehicle. There's more to the business case than capex, fuel, and maintenance cost. Sarah, go.
Exactly that, just making sure that feedback loop is closed, where the drivers are showing through data that they have had less downtime as a result of a healthy working environment.
Ian Thompson asks, has MCS been finalised? So megawatt charging, has it been finalised? And do we know where the charging port will be fitted on EHGVs? Sam will know.
I do know. I'm just going to go back to Sarah's question very quickly. I'd like to make a suggestion to the MPs, and that is to make a EV driving lesson compulsory when you learn to drive. That way, everybody has experienced it from the beginning of their driving learning journey.
I like it.
I just thought of that. It's brilliant. MCS charging. It's not yet completely done, but MCS regulations are all but finalised, and the positioning of the vehicle socket, and I wish the rest of the world had done this originally with every other vehicle, will be on the rear front arch, behind the front arch on the left-hand side of the vehicle. So there is a standardization of where it's being placed on the vehicle. I just wish that we'd done that with cars and everything else, or at least had a couple of choices, front or back or something. We would have saved ourselves billions in infrastructure complexities. But unfortunately, because CCS will still be the prevalent connector for some years to come, notwithstanding the fact there'll be a legacy of vehicles that'll be out there for years with CCS, you may find them all over the vehicle, front left, side left, and front middle. So we've got a lot to contend with. Even if MCS standardizes that connector, there's going to be a long tail of legacy that we're still going to have to deal with.
I'll pull the finger boy wants a word.
Well, there's, I mean, there is just, I mean, in the van world as well, having that standardized charge point is really tricky. There is no common agreement. Some people say that you should pull in and plug in at the front. Other people say you can reverse in, but then there's challenges. And I mean, it just is very, very frustrating. I will also just say about the driver side of things that there is, gee, my brain isn't working today. John, go back
The
to you.
recharge.
I,
The legend that is Alec Peachy from Transport and Energy, the aforementioned forum that and the speaker panel that Sarah works with the editorial board. How big a role will shared charging infrastructure play when it comes to advancing the electrification of fleets? Sarah.
Yep, going back to the CV show where we hosted a local authority panel special, it shows that that equipment exists, but it has huge downtime as well. So if local authorities and others who already have electrified depots can make a model that shows that sharing that in a structured and organised and insured way is a really highly profitable way to not only release infrastructure into the wild by letting people in, but also stopping people from having to wait or join the queue for further connections. So this is the thing, is waiting for the connection at a lot of these places. There's plenty of land, plenty of money sloshing about, but the queue to get that connection, why not share in the meantime?
All the fingers back.
So sharing I put this question to Justin Laney, who's head of transport for the John Lewis partnership, and he said that would be game changing. There are already software platforms out there to kind of deal with some of the health and safety issues about sort of charging behind the wire, and companies are now beginning to talk about putting some of the charging in front of the wire deliberately so that they can block it off. We know that the software management systems platforms that will allow public and non-public charging and to switch between the two. So that's all really good. So sharing is a real potential game changer because it just allows companies to kind of work together. Welch's Transport are already doing this, so it's great to see that kind of stuff. And I remembered it was to do with Sarah's point around drivers' health and productivity is an incredibly important element, and drivers being physically well and able to do that, we're seeing reduced downtime already because of driver health and well-being. So it's a definite positive.
David Partington, great question. Is battery degradation or the fear of battery degradation an issue or concern in e-commercial vehicle market at the moment? Let's go with Sam and then Paul.
I think probably for the leasing companies, it might be something they need to be very cautious of because of the residual values of these vehicles. But for most of the fleets that are leasing vehicles, it's not really their thing to worry about because they'll be leasing the vehicle for a number of years and returning it. But as we've seen across all EVs, the battery degradation has been very light, and in fact, it's exceeded expectations for the original vehicles, and Teslas and Leafs of this world that have been out for many years have shown very low degradation. And we've heard from Jörg Turk that gives us some comfort that even charging on DC all the time, because of the buffers that they've got, there's a protection element to it that protects the batteries. So yeah, it's a concern in as much as many facets and variables of the vehicle is a concern, but I wouldn't say it was a major worry.
Oh, Paul, release the hound.
Sam obviously is believing his own PR because you're living in a bubble if you think that it is not a major fear. We are here at Motorway in one of their meetings where used dealers responsible for purchasing thousands of vehicles are terrified of buying those used vehicles.
Correct, which is what I just said. So the leasing companies and the residual values is the key thing. So it's the second-hand market where the concern sits, right? Which is what I said at the beginning.
Yes, but that's the question. But that was the question. But you kind of waxed eloquent about how it was all right, and you and McTurk told us it was fine. But what we need is somebody to get out there and tell all of the dealers, all of the buyers, and what we've seen in the market is BCA have come to market now with a battery health guide, and that is really important. So we're helping those people. But is it a fear? Hell yeah, it's a massive fear. And it's really impinging on the market. If you go to the commercial vehicle market, they're way below the predicted residual values. Lex took a huge 40 million bath on the residual values of their vehicles because people haven't really got their head around this battery thing. We have, we know it, but absolutely everybody else needs to know it because if they don't, they're going to be afraid of it, and they are afraid of it currently.
Yeah, the key distinction is the customer, the commercial market, which is what David mentioned, versus those that own the vehicles, because there's a very distinct difference between those two use cases and users, right? So those that are purchasing or leasing the vehicles and those that are ultimately owning the assets. So I think there's a distinction that should be drawn between those two demographics.
What I can say is, David Partington, you have asked the best question of the day, and you've won an EV Cafe mug, my friend.
Oh.
So if you get in touch with us at EV Cafe on LinkedIn, so just search the EV Cafe, send us your details where you'd like the mug to be sent, and you shall have it. I'd like to wrap up with a comment from Leo Pickford. He says, great to see the IEA report out this morning stating that the TCO crossover point for heavy trucks is expected to be this side of 2030. Can we do more to advertise that it's going to be that soon? You bet your sweet dollar, my friend. We're on the case. Today has been outstanding. Thank you so much for staying. Thank you for all those brilliant questions. But most of all, thanks to you for being here. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Sarah. We will see you all again next month. Who knows what we'll be talking about? But what we can tell you is it will be funner. Until then, bless your little hearts. Stay safe, stay well. See you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.